So, this is a part of the writing process. I know it's going to seem difficult to perceive and understand that, but this is definitely a part of my specific writing process. This is like the second time this week I've already had someone block me, and without even responding to this, just offering to respond, being cursed out to say that single men have no place to respond to this. And this is the second day it's popping up in my newsfeed from somebody else. So I feel like I kind of have to respond. And the idea that men have no place to say a woman getting married is 100% fucking like delusional. It's like you would have to actually be insane or deeply damaged to think that men have no say, if not the entirety of say, in whether or not a woman gets married. Because it just defeats the entire idea of dating, it defeats the entire idea of marriage, it defeats the entire idea of relationships. A man is responsible for proposing. A man is responsible for even maintaining the relationship to begin with. So even if you don't necessarily believe in marriage and you believe in civil unions, a man is 1,000% responsible for a relationship staying together. A woman can help, she can set the mood, she can be a great partner, but that's not always necessarily the case. So if your idea of this is that you want a marriage or a relationship with a man that's going to last you more than 5 months, more than a year, you have to critically learn how to listen to what it is that men want and desire. Because the reality is that most women have no idea. If you look at their books, if you look at how they write men, if you look at their perceptions of men, if you look at the things that they say about men, if you look at a lot of the negative, deeply damaged, borderline behavior, perceptions that they have of masculinity, and the way that a lot of women feel like they need to don masculinity to get through life, I feel like we're dealing with a populace of females that have allowed their pain, maybe their negative experiences, and a deep level of psychological psychosis to overtake reality, to overtake what is true, to overtake what is functional, and to overtake what might actually be healthy for them. If you're going into a job interview, do you not want that employer's perspective of the position, of how to get promoted, of how to get raises, of how to progress, to even see if the job is for you to begin with? The answer that most of you might say is, well, relationships aren't like jobs and stuff. Again, you're being insane. Like, you're being 100% fucking crazy. It's an example. So that's just it. It's an example. So the reality is that, yes, you may not want their perspective, but you need that employer's perspective. Just like if you don't want to die alone and single, you need to have a clear perspective of what it is that men want. Most of your relationships are failing because you do not know what men value, of what men need, and you're trying to love someone, even despite the idea of it being a man or any other thing. You're attempting to love someone the way you feel like loving them, or the way you feel they deserve to be loved, without checking in and asking them how do they think they should be loved. So the other side of that too is, what about the men? That's what I see all the time, is that women are so focused upon, well, men need to develop themselves too, and men are fucked up too, and men have issues too. And great. I just got in an argument with this over the weekend, that the topic of single mothers, I posted something that said the same thing. Men have no place to say what a single mother does. And my response is, well, you're a single mother now. Now what? So the topic was about the fathers of those children that are single mothers, the deadbeat dads and things of that nature. And I had no response for you, really. There's already such an insurmountable pressure upon men, whether you want to believe it or not, to live so falsely to their identity as human beings that, yeah, a lot of men don't take care of their kids. So it's a blessing when you have a man that does. But what's the issue here is that a lot of these relationships in which a man's not taking care of their kid, the men will testify and say they're not taking care of their kid because the woman is crazy, because the woman is immature, because the woman fights all the time, because the woman is basically like broken. Like there's poor people and then there are broken people, and those are the two limitations of functionality. And a lot of men are broken too. A lot of men are violent. A lot of men have deep-seated emotional issues that they do not know how to show emotion, or they overly show emotion. So yes, men have a lot of deep issues too. So that would mean that you would have to understand what that man needs, what that man desires, and what that man thinks in order to be in a healthy relationship with him. I don't understand the kind of psychotic delusion that's going on here that is only equivalent to a type of narcissistic disorder. I just saw another comment about this, that the person didn't even read the article. So the article in the root of all this is apparently about some pastor, and I read the article, but I did not read or did not hear the sermon that the pastor said regarding this. I'm pretty sure that it's not worth any of the outrage. Unless these women just aren't Christian, they have no belief in God, then they're just debating with it because there's a Christian man speaking, and that's delusional and psychotic once again. Woman didn't even read the article to see whether or not she agreed with what the writer was saying. She didn't look any deeper. They just have this baseline perspective and ideology that a man has no place in say in a single woman's life. And that's very true. If she hopes to stay single until she dies, if she is a lesbian, if she is a transsexual who's only attracted to other transsexuals, then I would agree 100%. For those three cases alone, if the woman wants to be single until she dies, if she wants to die alone, if she is a transsexual woman who only is attracted to transsexuals, or if she's just playing the field and she has no interest in ever getting married and ever having serious relationships, then no, for those three women, you don't need a man's perspective in anything. You don't ever need to consult a man in anything that you do. You don't ever need to talk to a man. You don't even ever need to like men or do anything about that. If you are a heterosexual female who wants to get married to a heterosexual male, then you listening to all these crazy fucking people who are poisoning your mind about relationships, poisoning your mind about men, poisoning your mind about sexuality. A lot of these third wave entering into fourth wave feminists, which is no longer about feminism, and it is about the transgender LGBT movement 1000%, and about submitting femininity to the LGBT transsexual movement, then yeah, you're right. You don't need men for anything. But if you are trying to have a heterosexual relationship with a heterosexual male, then the entirety of your relationship is going to be a mutual understanding between you, a heterosexual female, attempting to understand the life of a heterosexual male, and then eventually getting over the idea that him being a man and you being a woman has a little bit of little to nothing to fucking do with the situation, and you're going to have to learn how to love that individual the way that individual wants to be loved. It is downright delusional, it is narcissistic, and it is psychotic to imagine yourself entering into a relationship with someone where you have no prior knowledge, experience, repertoire, history, empathy, anything towards the person that you're going to get in this relationship with. and to dismay the idea of how much internal work that you need, to dismay and to delay the idea of how much focus you need to self-love and to self-preservation and to make yourself a better person, to put that all upon masculinity and put that all upon men, then it defeats the purpose of feminism to begin with. Because that, if we're going to return to the ideas that we've held for the majority of humans' existence on this planet, then fine, so be it. But you can't have it both ways. You can't say that men are the only ones that need work to do, and yet you've been single for 30 years, you've been single for 20 years or for a decade. Your last relationship ended horrifically, and you have no experience with men outside of your negative experience with your one singular partner. And from a lot of the women that I've gotten to discuss this with on a completely platonic basis, you guys have deep issues with men. You guys, and I've had to talk to other women about this to give me perspective on it. And it really just comes down to that. A lot of you women have very deep, negative, demonic perceptions of men that is just unhealthy and it's poisonous to you. So that when you come to meet men like me who are already in a relationship, I already have a kid, I have no interest in doing anything sexual or romantic with you whatsoever, you still can't function or speak to me or have any type of relationship with me because you're so far removed from the idea of just treating people with basic respect if they're not a woman, that you don't even really treat women with basic respect. You treat women with this kind of overly positive, fake kind of embracing of just shrouding her with positivity and shrouding her with positivity and shrouding her with positivity to a point where you're no longer being realistic or honest with her, and that's not respect. It really just isn't. You know, when you can be honest with someone and you still respect their opinion, like I can't use the same word to describe the word, and you're still interested in their perspective, you're still interested in their opinion, you're still interested in their feedback and continuing your relationship with them, despite you maybe having some negative perceptions of you, you're willing to actually confront that person or just sit down with that person and discuss those things, you know? But some of you women have just, and maybe it is because you're in pain, but being in pain would be more of my point and more of my reason why this comes from a place of, well, your perception anyway comes from, I'm coming from a place of pure empathy. I'm coming from a place of pure love. I believe very deeply in family. I believe very deeply in raising your own children and not having children with somebody and then you going off to go date another woman and then her going off to find somebody to raise your kids. I feel like that's deplorable, and I feel like more men need to speak up and say the conditions that a lot of men leave women in is absolutely fucking deplorable. The whole perception, that's my whole point entirely, is that mainly the whole point of perception of masculinity and femininity within itself is very poisonous and very toxic, and it changes culture to culture depending on where you're visiting and what you're dealing with. So to stand behind that and hide behind, I'm a woman that's dealt with this, and that, you being a woman has nothing to do with that. But if you focus on what you dealt with, if you focus on why you dealt with it, you focus on how long you've dealt with it, you're going to understand where your pain comes from. You're going to understand where your mental illness comes from. And it's more than likely something that has nothing to do with men, that has nothing to do with masculinity, and it might have a lot to just do with your negative perceptions and experiences that you put yourself in. And had you had the perception, had you had the understanding, sadly in most of these cases ironically, that you do need to listen to a man and you do need to understand men to begin with, you more than likely would have understood he was not a good partner for me to begin with and moved on with your life. Or you would have been able to understand and perceive, you know what? He's dealing with a lot of the same things that I am dealing with. You know, he is facing worse issues that I'm facing, and maybe I can be a little bit more empathic to him. Instead, it's like so many of these weird factors that goes into a woman acting like a woman that should have nothing to do with her personal life and acting as she should right and healthily within her hormonal being. You know, if you're a woman, you shouldn't need anything to feel like a woman. You should just feel like a woman. If you're a man, you shouldn't need to beat on women to feel like a man. You shouldn't need to speak lowly upon women or speak lowly upon other men to feel like a man. You shouldn't need to go to war, have all these wealth and have all these riches to feel like a man. If you're really a man, you're going to feel like a man regardless. You don't need a surgery to feel like a man. If you're really a man, and I'm telling you because I am one, biologically speaking, and throughout my entire life, if you're a man, no amount of money, no amount of pussy, no amount of drugs in your life is going to make you feel like a fucking man other than simply just being a fucking dude, And there's a lot of dialogue, there's a lot of mindsets and beliefs that are attempting to corrupt and confuse people on what it is to be a man, and I think that's the basis of this entire issue. But to have the idea and perception that you can be a heterosexual woman, a single heterosexual woman, and you've so thoroughly convinced yourself that you don't need the perception or insights of other men, of the men that you are trying to date, of the men you are attempting to spend the rest of your life with, someone's son, someone's baby boy, someone's prodigy in a lot of cases, that has a lot of options other than you. Is a man going to go to the woman that is going to verbally and mentally abuse him, neglect his needs, neglect his ideas, and treat him like a second-class citizen because of all the weird psychotic things that she's going through? No. And that is in a lot of cases why men cheat. It is in a lot of cases why men up and leave, because they feel mistreated in their relationship. They are verbalizing that they feel mistreated by women in their relationship, and the woman is so far gone and just so lost in her arrogance and narcissism that she can't stop herself to understand she also has issues, that maybe she has faulty knowledge and faulty information. And a lot of the cases, that's really just it. It is really just women trading bad advice. It is really just women giving each other bad advice. The majority of the time. You see it in movies, you see it in TV shows, you read it in books. It's everywhere. It's really just women setting other women up for failure. And then usually the other chick that gave the advice, or the chick in the cut that heard it and laughed at it and thought that the whole thing was silly, takes your dude, or takes the guy that you wanted. And then you're sitting here wondering, how did she end up with him? And it's because she doesn't think the way that you do. It's because she's not at war with men. You can't simultaneously love someone and then be at war with them. You can't love someone or attempt to love someone and you have no basis of understanding what it is they feel or how they want to live life or what they value or anything. The idea that you can be a heterosexual woman seeking a heterosexual man and you don't believe that you need a man's perspective on how to get a man, you're crazy. If you really think that women understand men better than men do, you really need to talk to all these single women. And then you need to talk to some married women. You need to talk to women that have been married, happily married, I would add that, for years on end. And you're going to see a major difference in how a married woman deals with men versus how a single woman is even willing to consider maybe treating a man. There's a huge difference. And you're going to quickly find out that pussy doesn't really mean a lot to men. Sex doesn't really mean a lot to men. But being understood, being properly loved and taken care of, being able to express himself the way he chooses to express his masculinity, that means everything to a man. And sadly, I'm just looking at it, and just the way that women are reacting and feel entitled to react to it without even doing any research, mind you. A lot of you women are set up for failure. A lot of you are going to die alone. And there's not much that anybody can do to help you or save you, because you are the one who is personally setting yourself up for failure. If I'm going into a job interview, I want to understand and ask the employer any and everything to better understand whether or not this is the right job for me. And if I feel like it is the right job for me, how do I progress at the job? How do I get better at the job? While I'm on the job, I'm going to continue asking and trying to understand deeper and deeper. How do I improve my position to get to where you are? How do I improve my position to get to where they want to be? Because if I have a goal in mind, my egoism and my pain and my past can't stop me from reaching my future. But for a lot of you women, this is just sad reality. For a lot of you women, your ego and your perceived pain is going to stop you from living any type of life at all. Period.